Look into this dark, unforgiving glass eye, the mesh of the microphone. Tell it your deepest thoughts, hopes, fears, and desires. We will take these emotions, turn them, and feed them back to you, for we have goals, goals that your feelings will assist. This is how we rule. From the shadows, playing your emotions like puppet strings, we lead you to destinations that we have prepared, and you willingly oblige, thinking these decisions to be your own. When you do as we wish, we reward you, and when you go against us, we punish you. In a million subtle ways, we influence your supposedly free choice. By this method, we rule over a population convinced that they are the masters of their own destiny. Welcome to the Empire of Lies.
Yes, welcome indeed to the next installment of Empire of Lies. This is the third official installment. Tonight's topic is psychological warfare, not in a negative light, but in a light of what it is, what it means, and why we are able to protect ourselves and fight back, which we will get to after Chris's introduction. And tonight we will be going over a book and then selections from another book from someone that I know personally. But before we get to that, I would like to remind you guys that I am sharing the proceeds of this particular stream series with my friend over here, Mr. Newsfist himself. And during the stream, you can leave paid chats on not on YouTube. We'll never be monetized on YouTube, but you can send rants on Rumble. You can send hyper chats on Odyssey. I of course prefer paid chats on Entropy to support the good folks over at Entropy. Also, you can send short messages with a very small percentage cut to both PayPal and Cash App. And those links are in the description wherever you happen to be listening to this stream or VOD. And of course, if you would like to support the work that I and Chris do long term, I highly recommend that you join my Subscribe Star. And if you are joined on the Subscribe Star, not only do you get insider information via my Subscribe Star, but you also have my direct ear via PMs and things like that, as well as occasional input on the direction that I take certain topics with the stream series that I do. And of course, if you are a Subscribe Star user, you can send tips, which are like paid chats or super chats via Subscribe Star. Now, on this series, we will be answering all of those at the end. So that will come at the end of our 1 hour presentation tonight. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to my main man, Chris. Chris, please take it away.
Hey, everyone. So this episode is about psychological warfare. Not just how you can protect yourself against it, but more importantly, how you can go on the offense with it. A lot of people have been asking me, sure, it's fine to describe what's going on, but, how do we push back? How, what can we do to, push back against the sort of burgeoning totalitarian state? Well, dear viewer, this is how. And what we really must do is make psychological war upon the elites, because frankly, it is the only option that we have left. Violence is really not going to work. Not only do they have access to every single part of the coercive state, but the use of violence merely strengthens their cause. The examples of this are legion. January 6th are an excellent example. The use of violence or direct force merely enables the coercive parts of the state to crack down further. So, I would like first to sort of talk a little bit about 5th and 6th generational warfare. Now, 6th generational warfare is not really defined yet, but I am going to try and make a definition. Now, 5th generational warfare is basically a sort of post-invention of fourth generational warfare, where you know who the army is, you can see the enemy, you have two forces. Fifth generational warfare was a bit like Hamas in Gaza, for example. You have militias that are mixed in with the local population. Vietnam would be another good example of this. This is known in military as counterinsurgency. And this involves not sort of, very, very focused kinetic force and sort of heavy psychological warfare. Now, we have really moved past that now. Under a sixth generational warfare model, what you really have is where the elites are basically making war on an entire population. They have successfully subverted or disabled all organized groups that could use any kind of kinetic force against them. And thus they rely very, very heavily on sort of, coercive methods such as, terror, psychological warfare, and all this kind of other stuff. But one of the new things that is very, very different in the current era is social media. Social media is a great leveler, right? And this, of course, is one of the reasons why the totalitarians are extremely interested in making sure that people do not have access to social media. It is the great leveler. On something like Twitter, anyone can speak back to power. And even though if you go and you look at a lot of these organs of the state, things like the Club of Rome, the Atlantic Council, all these people that are essentially global policy leaders, they have very, very little interaction. Indeed, I kind of think of these accounts as the elite talking to themselves. You're not even supposed to know that they exist. You look at these accounts, they have very, very low engagement. Some of them, like the WHO and the World Economic Forum, are well known enough that they do get some pushback. But fundamentally, a lot of the sort of more core organs of the global state are basically completely unknown, and there is no pushback. And I suggest that we should change that. Because the only tool that is really left to us is psychological warfare. Now, the reason why I suggest that this is a good strategy is that at the moment, the elites are quite seriously wounded. They are rapidly approaching a point where they are either going to have to go kinetic in order to enforce the policies that they want, or they are going to have to give it up. And there has been much discussion on whether they have the sheer wills, the sheer intestinal fortitude to actually do this. And I'm not sure, quite frankly, that they do. I think many of the people driving this project, not the hardcore ideologues, by the way, I just should point this out, that people such as Tony Blair, for example, you're never going to get through to a guy like that. Klaus Schwab, you're never going to get through to a guy like that. But these figures...
Or in America, people like Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris,
exactly,
the Bidens, that kind of people, we're never going to be able to change them.
Correct. But they have, perforce, very large support mechanisms, right? For every one of these ideologues, there are hundreds of people that are just along for the ride. They're just trying to get along. They're just trying to do a job. They have been told that this is for the good of society. And for a while, it basically appeared that it was. If you kind of shut your eyes and you squinted and you looked at a certain way, you could convince yourself that, you were the good guys. You were doing the good thing. However, the mask is increasingly coming off, and it will not be long before the elites must either really, really implement harsh, coercive, kinetic methods. And when they do so, they are going to shock many of the people around them. There are not as many people that are fully on board with the program, and this is exacerbated because they have been hiding the real goals of the program, not just from us, but from the people around them. And I want to make this point that is not often considered. A lot of the propaganda is not aimed just at you. Its primary target actually is what we would call the managerial elite, the support mechanism for these elite people. This is one of the reasons why a lot of these people, they are so incredibly brainwashed. If you've ever met any of them, it's part of the job description. They won't even let you get within 10 feet of a think tank or anything else unless you have the right ideological framing. And thus a lot... Sorry, go on.
I would just want to explain for the people listening who might not know what we mean when we say the managerial elite. We're not talking about clandestine individuals in the deep state that you can never meet. We're talking about all the functionaries of the managerial elite. We're talking about people who run universities, who run media companies, who run printing press companies, who run publishers, newspapers, magazines, comic book industry, people that create video games, the people that are in these sort of lofty elite positions of being able to curate what goes into mass publications, mass media, mass entertainment, and of course, the bureaucratic political apparati, whether they be city government in large cities or state, local, federal governments, the thousands upon thousands of people that work in these institutions towards the top, whether they be in HR, accounting, research and development, these are the people that are insulated from us, the people who would want to influence the people that do the bidding of these anti-white oligarchs. This is who we're talking about when we talk about the managerial functionaries of the elite.
And I'd just like to point out something. There's been a recent large leak about the censorship industrial complex that was in the House Weaponization Committee today. And it came out that this group called CTIL, they actually had in-house comics that they made. I have not seen them. I really, really hope we get to see them. But apparently they were superhero comics. They were made in-house. And I can almost tell you exactly what these things said. You know, we are the heroes. We are fighting disinformation. There's probably some bad guy in a cape who represents disinformation. The truth of the matter is that many of the people carrying out the will of the elites are the most propagandized. So what we need to do, right, and this process is ongoing, but I think more people need to hear this, is to demoralize the elites and the people around them and get them to question their cause. It's all very, very well and good when you're having victory after victory. It's all very well and good when you think you are the good guys. But once popular opinion turns against you, these people will be deprived of the primary plank of their legitimacy, which is that we are just doing it for the good of everyone. Everyone, everyone apart from a small fringe minority wants this to happen. And it's becoming very, very obvious that the number of people who do not want this is much larger than a small fringe minority. So the general aim of psychological warfare is to sow confusion and demoralization, to sap an enemy's will to fight, to get them to question their cause. And this is key, to get them to question also their competency, because they have basically told us they are the smartest people in the room for whatever reason, whether it's ethnic superiority or religious superiority. There's a big mix of both kinds. They are the smartest people in the room, the managerial elite. They know what to do. It is the whole raison d'etre why they claim that they can take decision-making power away from you, because they know better. The problem with this formulation, of course, is that they only have to make one massive mistake for this to be laid bare. And I don't think it will go as far in the USSR. So, for example, the fall of the USSR in Western popular opinion really happened in the Holodomor, right? Once it came out in the West that the Soviets were starving millions of their own population, even the most fervent communist defenders began to fall off. And I think we are beginning to see the start of this process now.
And one of the reasons why we're making this dissertation is in the modern era, we see the people that are at the helm now, the ones pulling the levers, the ones that are the functionaries in the bureaucracy. They are not of the same ideologically driven, hardened type of the ones that ran the early USSR. They are a much weaker, softer, less invested type of manager than the ones that we have, than the ones that existed in that era of the Soviet Union.
Oh yes, and they are nowhere near as brutal. I mean, it seems to me that they think that they can softly catchy monkey their way to the utopia. And clearly not enough of them have studied history, and not enough of them realize that at the end of, I mean, this may be a rather crude representation, but this is the way that I think of it. Imagine a predator who is, stalking a woman for purposes of sexual violence, right? The lead up, the stalking may be very softly, catchy monkey, but at a certain point, the distance must be closed and violence must be initiated. And I think that at that point, where the elites are standing on the street corner waiting for their target to come past so that they can physically grab them, I think that they may lose their nerve. At its heart, the aim of psychological warfare is to make the enemy question their competency. Wait, put up an image. Okay, wait, let's go to the Ensmollen. Yes, this is the book, Psychological Warfare, as you can see. At its heart, the aim is to make the enemy question whether the war is worth fighting, whether it might be better to go home and sue for peace, to disrupt whatever political formula they are using in order to justify war. Now, a political formula, of course, is the story that the elites tell themselves for why they deserve to be in charge. And, this is very, very important. Every ruling elite has one. And, to kind of sum it up, the current ruling elite has a formula that is something like, hang on, wait a sec. I had it written down here. Oh, no, I don't. It's basically something like Europeans were bad custodians of the world. They caused many wars. Therefore, their power must be blunted. Democracy has not caused world peace because for some weird reason they think that world peace is achievable, whereas this really isn't true. And therefore, they need a managerial elite to come along to stop famine, to stop war, to make everything nice, equality, and all of this kind of stuff. Now, these kinds of large, overreaching political formulas are very, very prone to corruption. If you compare it to a political formula like the king is descended from God, he has a birthright to rule, that is a very much simpler political formula and much harder to disrupt. The only way you can really disrupt it is to throw doubt on the king's lineage or to throw doubt on the fact that he was indeed picked by God.
And one of the things I'd like to point out here is something that our friend Dr. Nemo Paparazzi said in his recent book, Prophets of Doom, is they view all of human civilization, not just Western, but all of it, as on a progressive uptick. They don't believe in cycles. They believe that with their ideological might and control of resources, they can reject the law of universal entropy. They don't think that it can apply to them. They believe they can beat death and decay itself. And when they turn a blind eye to that and they disbelieve it, it is very easy for that universal constant to attack them. Because if you can't see a thing, it's easier for it to attack you. That's why these systems driven by this, and when I say progressive, I mean not in like a leftist pro-LGBT sense. I mean in a progressive meaning non-cyclical or non-up and down. When you view it in a progressive line, you don't believe in entropy at all. You don't think that universal entropy will destroy something that can inevitably churn forward. And so that is why corruption so easily gets in to a system driven by this ideology that rejects universal entropy.
I don't know about whether they believe in universal entropy or not. I think it's just a sort of very low grade sort of trust in feeling, something that has been encouraged. And when this message breaks, when the support network realizes that they have been lied to, the shock will be immense. And I would be willing to bet money that at the moment, this is what is happening, that the support networks of the elite are starting to have doubts. Many of them are probably, have separate Twitter accounts where they follow stuff that they would be canceled for if anyone knew about it. So the logistical support networks of these elites must be targeted through questions, humor, and demoralization. In war, we would call this targeting logistics. You're not targeting the soldiers directly, the elites. You're targeting the people that keep these soldiers fed and supplied. If enough of them can be, they will feel this lack of support. And as people turn away from them, their ability to bring their vision into reality will be blunted. And even if these people don't leave their jobs, even if they start just serving time, even if they just don't put in the extra effort, even if they don't believe, it will still cause a drag on the mission. Social media has massively leveled the playing field in this respect. Anyone can make an account on Twitter and get in the replies of the Club of Rome, the Atlantic Council, the United Nations, the WHO. Obviously, I would not encourage you to use any real details, and I would encourage people always to use a VPN if they are engaging in this kind of activity. And I would say that humor is particularly effective in this regard because laughter is an involuntary action, right? If you watch people who make themselves laugh, it's not sincere. Real laughter is involuntary. It is torn from the soul, in effect, right? And you often get laughter where you point out something that is indisputably true that people are not allowed to say. This is what laughter is, like a electric arc that jumps between the lie and the truth. So the simpler and the more humorous, the better. This is why memes are so effective. The pseudo reality that these people are living in, it takes a very, very long time to develop, many, many years. This is why they start so young, building up a sort of spun sugar prison of lies and mirrors around these people. But the truth can shatter this in an instant and can completely sort of destroy. One fit of laughter can make someone think about it for quite a while afterwards. And again, the aim is not necessarily to make these people quit, but just to get them to stop respecting the mission, stop respecting their superiors. If it happens to enough of them, they will feel it. Now, at the moment, the tactic that they are using is to just deny the people who are speaking. It's a small fringe minority. We only go from trusted sources. But this is now falling apart. It is now becoming clear this is not a fringe minority. And given long enough, even the egotistical will recognize the truth eventually. They may never speak about it. They may push it down and try and hide it. But the truth is self-evident to all but the most deluded psychopaths, essentially. They will never let on, of course, that they were wrong, or that their abilities were not as grand as they imagined. And the loss of face would be huge if they did so. Always remember that many of these people are sort of quite hollow inside. I mean, it takes a very special kind of person to say, I am going to change the world, right? I am the one who is going to step up and take responsibility for millions of people. I have always wondered about this. I personally, someone said to me, tomorrow you're going to lead, 10 million people. I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't, it takes a very, very specific kind of person, a very specific kind of ego to do that kind of stuff, right? Now, these errors are already coming to the fore. The vaccine would be a very, very good example of this. Now, there are many people who say that none of the elite took the shot, but this is very, very hard to say. And even if they did not, their friends in the lower classes almost certainly did. Their families certainly did. And as the effects of this sort of start to, filter out, it is entirely possible that many of them will realize that this was done in error and there was not enough time given, and anger will start to flow.
And especially that anger will flow when they realize it wasn't just error, but malice on those who led them.
Yes, exactly. Highlighting hypocrisy is a very, very good technique as well. Side-by-side comparisons of like tweets or newspaper articles. When race is a particularly good one for this. Just look up what they say about white people and, versus black people, and just put these two things side by side and highlight the hypocrisy. Highlight the inherent hypocrisy of these positions. For example, how is it democracy if you're excluding people from voting? Well, obviously, right? The thing that they don't want to say is when they say democracy or our democracy, they mean only a select ideological group of people get to vote. Try and get them to say it out loud if you can, or at the very least, get them to consider it. Remember, in the words of Saul Alinsky, who is a massive leftist, but basically wrote Rules for Radicals, the template for which much of the modern cognitive warfare environment is based on, the target's reaction is your goal. The loss of legitimacy and the damaging of their political formula. So this is what's likely to happen. If they get demoralized, if they get unstable, if they get insecure, they will lash out and do something truly horrible. I think we're seeing this at the moment in Ireland, for example. They are trying to pass a set of hate speech laws that even the most blinkered person cannot look at and say, oh, yes, this is what a liberal democracy does, right? A liberal democracy, bans like private speech that you might have in your own home, right? Like the tension between the idea of saying, oh, yes, we're doing it because we're a liberal democracy, and the things that they will have to do in order to force this home will make the entire thing collapse. So there are many lines that you can take in terms of attack. Have a think about your opponent. Sit down and honestly try and put yourselves in the shoes of the elite. These are people. I know it's very, very common to, say they're lizard people or they're aliens, but that's people merely do that as a device because they don't like to imagine their opponents as human, but they are. They are human. They have their own human frailties, their own human foibles. They are prideful. They are narcissistic. They are touchy. Often, many of them are touchy about little things in the way that people in power notoriously are. You can try lines of attack such as they are not as virtuous or intelligent as they claim. Like I was saying, you think that you can rule the world, but you cannot govern your family. You think you can rule the world, but you can't govern even a small program within your own country. The line of attack that they have bitten off more than they can chew. And this is almost certainly true. I must make a point here. If you're going to use these techniques, always, always, always speak the truth. Do not fake newspaper articles. Do not do any of that. The truth is the ultimate power. If you make a meme out of newspaper articles, use the best sources possible. Get it from the New York Times, from the Guardian, or whatever. Don't, go to some crazy paper where they can just be like, oh, yes, that's, fake news source. No. There is more than enough information in their own sources for this technique to work. Say that their prescriptions will not result in peace, which is, like, oh, yes, net zero will result in peace, for example. And that excessive centralization leads to fewer points of critical failure. Although, generally speaking, the people who rule don't like to be told this. And so, again, the idea is to enrage and humiliate the elites and bait them into making a big mistake, making them overplay their hand. The more abusive the laws that they pass, the more lie is given to their assertion that they rule with consent. They don't really care about consent. They merely care about the appearance of consent. This is critical. And as they start getting more and more tyrannical, this appearance will be increasingly harder to maintain. Also, the bigger the mistakes they make, the more hollow becomes their claims of superiority and omnipotence. And always remember, friends, you don't need an audience of millions. Don't let the elites con you into the idea that if you don't have a YouTube account with like 10 million people, you are nothing. A million voices crying out is just as loud as one Pavarotti, or even louder. Look at a football stadium, right? This whole idea that, you must be a really big mover and shaker in order to make a difference. No, that's not true. Just be yourself, right? Put forward your ideas. Just do it. Like, really, be counted in the many people pushing back. the elites, in my opinion, are on the back foot, and you can tell because they have started pleading now instead of just demanding. Remember at the start of COVID, they didn't plead, they just demanded. You know, they decide, you obey. The tone has shifted dramatically now. Now they are pleading, now they are bargaining. This means they are not operating from a position of strength. Once this minority that is resisting hits a critical mass, the very arguments about consent and democracy will be critically undermined. And that is when things are going to get spicy. And with any luck, we can all get out of this with, you know, them just making a few mistakes, and we will not have to wait for a Soviet Union style collapse. Thanks. Right. That's me done.
Okay. No, that was great. I have some things to say in response to his delivery. And the most important thing that I want to remind everyone of is be truthful and be honest the best that you can. I know that there is a lot of information out there that is heavily tilted towards your side of things, my side of things. But like Chris said earlier, there's more than enough information, headlines, data from incredibly officialized sources that are part of this establishment that are counter to the establishment. They publish them every day. Like using the COVID thing as an example, you can find multiple things archived from the CDC itself, archived now, so they can't be easily brushed away. That shows how data was fudged to make numbers look a certain way for someone's narrative. You can see the professed ideas or the professed actions of certain elected leaders are diametrically opposed to things they said weeks or months previous. Those things don't go away. Those are in official sources. Those are in the New York Times, Fox News, things like that, or Guardian, like you mentioned in the UK. These are the things that you have to use, because the more fringe of presentation you have, the easier it is for the people that we can influence to dismiss it.
And not only that, sorry, if I can just
Go
interject,
ahead.
it hijacks their whole trust framework, right? Remember, for the last 5 years, right, they've been like, trust the science, trust the media, trust the respectable sources. Well, if you can show that those respectable sources either change their story all the time or have said something completely 180 degrees to the current narrative, because the current narrative, of course, is always changing. That is basically its function. Its function is not to be stable. The current narrative is designed to be whatever the elites wish it to be at any particular point in time. This is one of the great powers of the internet, where it is so easy to go back, to, the Guardian or New York Times or whatever, go back 5 years and read exactly what they were saying 5 years ago when they were assuring everyone, oh yes, we are absolutely correct. And when confronted by this, for example, the shot is a very, very good example of this. They kind of, we did the best that we knew at the time. Yeah, but that's not what you were saying, right?
Yeah.
You weren't saying at the time, we're operating with the best knowledge that we have, we could be wrong. No. You were saying we were 100% sure. You must absolutely obey. You must trust the science. We are 100% sure, guys. And one other thing I just want to point out to people: stop imagining the elites and your relationship with them as a relation to an amorphous mass. It is much easier to imagine them as people, and the lies and the gaslighting and the manipulation that they use as though you have a friend who lies to you all the time, or an ex-girlfriend who gaslit you, because the tactics are exactly the same. It is a trick to imagine that because they are amorphous and decentralized, that they use somehow different skills, different tactics. They are all exactly the same tactics. If
Because
you
the
have a psycho
subconscious,
ex-girlfriend, you've seen them all.
because the subconscious is always an individual. It's not a plurality. It's not an amorphous blob of infinite intelligences. The subconscious mind in the people that we can reach is always individual, just like you and me. And so that's why these tactics will work on the people that are required to maintain these tyrannical systems that we all suffer under. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and move to the first slides, which are the World War II Pacific campaign propagandas. No, not those. Those come next. the black and white ones of from the book that we'll be using.
Wait, which ones? I've
The
only
black
got
and white ones that
I've
I
only
sent
got
you on
the
Telegram.
two from I got the
The
two that you
no,
sent me
the
from.
ones figure 56 about the Pacific campaign in World War II. That's where I'm starting.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not have those. Just give me a second. Maybe check community engagement while I get these up. I'm terribly sorry. I thought you were
You're
starting with
showbizzing me by having these up right now. You
the
really,
Stalin ones.
yeah.
Right. Okay. No, it was just fifth generation warfare. We'll go to that. Right. Okay.
There we go. That's fine.
Okay. Right. It's up. My
Right.
apologies. Okay.
These two
Let me
images.
embiggen them a little bit.
Yeah, we'll embiggen them because these are really old, so they're small.
Yes.
Where we're going to start is with the same incident of conflict in the Pacific during World War II. This is obviously, well, toggle back and forth between them real quick. This one here, you can see, is Japanese. It shows Japanese fishermen and Japanese military officers on a ship throwing out their lines together to choke and strangle the hostile U.S. allied forces in the Pacific campaign. Now I'll go back to the other one. This is showing exactly the same thing, but just from the other side. Now, what was the target of this? What was the target of this propaganda? Well, because the people fighting were facing miserable conditions, miserable odds, and each side needed to propagandize their side to have higher morale and to not give up and to keep fighting, even though it was absolutely miserable and a war of attrition. It was terrible on both sides. So, again, the target of this propaganda, it was not the people who rule, it was not the generals, it was not the newscasters back home. It was to circulate this so the troops and the families of the troops they were in communication with would feel emboldened to have higher morale. That was the target. Now, this is an example of weaker psychological attack, of weak memery, because this is not necessarily true. This is not something that's easily falsifiable, right? Now, let's move to the Third Reich propaganda flyer that was dropped on the British troops, right? I'm going to read this out loud. This was dropped in places where the British would find them. It says, "You have been trapped. You have landed on the continent to face the armed might of Germany, but not for the benefit of Britain. Your country will gain absolutely nothing from this struggle, no matter how well you may fight. The Bolsheviks alone will profit by your sacrifices. You have been trapped into risking your life for but one purpose, the Bolshevization of Europe. Consider these points and ask yourself, why should you fight for Stalin?" Next slide. Why die for Stalin? In dying for Stalin, your soldiers are not dying for democracy or the preservation of the democratic form of government. They are dying for the establishment of communism and a form of Stalinist tyranny throughout the world. Furthermore, they are not dying for the preservation of integrity of small nations, which was England's former war cry, but they are dying so that Poland shall become a Soviet state, so that the Baltic states shall be incorporated into the Soviet Union, and that the Soviet Union influence will extend from the Baltic to the Balkans. Every British soldier who lays down his life in this war is not only a loss to his own country, he is a loss to the common cause of the European civilization. Germany's and England's quarrel is a form of traditional rivalry. It is more in the nature of a private quarrel which Germany did not seek. The Soviet Union's quarrel, however, is a quarrel with the world. It is a quarrel with our common heritage and with all those values, moral, spiritual, cultural, and material, which we have, all of us, Englishmen and German. Now, it might not have been
Where's
evident.
the lie, basically, you know?
Yeah, and it shows that even back then, these things were falsifiable because, now again, I don't take a side in World War II. I'm not saying, oh, which side was the good guy or all that. You guys know that I don't romanticize the Reich. But I chose this because Goebbels and the Reich leaders were expert propagandists. They were experts at psychological warfare. And they knew that truth was a powerful weapon. Because at the time when these were dropped, it was already self-evident that both Mussolini and Hitler, the axial power leaders, had made obeisance to not have warfare, to not have open conflict. They only wanted that small strip between Danzig and the other city on the very northern shore of Poland there. They wanted that. Now, you can split hairs over this and that about the war, but the fact of the matter is, all of the claims in this particular flyer are true. Also, everything that they claimed was going on. All of their claims about Stalinist expansion, how it was a fight for communism, not for the civilization of Europe, all of that stuff was already evident at the time and has only borne out to be true in the decades since. So that is why those first two slides I showed you do not land. They don't hit you as hard as this right here. Because not only was this made by experts who understand psychological warfare and that truth is power in memetics, but they implemented it in the right time, in the right way, so it would haunt the British soldiers. It would linger in their minds.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is the goal of this propaganda, was to demoralize and bring into question the ideological bond of the British soldiers coming onto the continent. And the reason that I use this tonight is to back up everything that Chris said in his opening. This is, think of the British soldiers that were the target here. Our target are the army landing on our quote-unquote continent, trying to demoralize and conquer us for this anti-white global usury network. It's basically the same principle here. That's why so many people call what's being done to us global communism. I don't like calling it that, but I'm not here to argue about that. But that's why I wanted to use these Third Reich propaganda flyers, is because it absolutely exemplifies what Chris talked about in his opening, and how you can use the truth as a powerful weapon to demoralize those that are carrying out the deeds of the higher up oligarchs. Because the weaker a soldier is in the mind, the weaker he is in the heart, and the more he questions himself spiritually about what he's doing, the less effective he is as a soldier. And we can say the same thing about the bureaucrats and the media managers and people like that. If we can reach them and shake them at their core, it will have a similar effect as the goal of this truthful propaganda.
Yeah, the haunting part of that is, I think, is very, very key. The voice in the back of the head that makes you question, am I really doing this for the good of the people? Because it's becoming very, very clear that that they aren't, even though a lot of people are very invested in this, obviously.
Indeed. So before we move on, let's let this linger, because I have something prepared I want to talk about that is meant to be read after your presentation here. And it goes like this. Fifth and sixth generational warfare has moved the modern battlefield to the immaterial, the battlefield of the mind and the spirit. Excuse me. The levels of communication technology we have now are like unto magic compared to when this flyer came out. And while it's true that anti-Western, anti-white power players own and control technological powerhouses of this technology, this has worked to their disadvantage, like my friend Chris laid out earlier. Time and time again, we have seen the failures and the backpedaling in the last 10 years. Corruption is exposed. Failures are made mainstream. And the utter contempt that people have for this hypocrisy and corruption is growing every day. We see it in protests. We see it in the rejection of things like Disney and the denigration of the ADL recently on Twitter. Their hypocrisy and evils have spilled over now via their own technology, via their own devices, in a way that's putting them on the back foot and making them have to skirt around us. So now I would like to talk about why I chose. You can leave this up, by the way. Actually, let's go to embiggen for now. Let's drop the image.
Okay, yes. Embiggening. Embiggening.
There we go. Good teamwork. Okay. I'd like to read something here before I move to my slides from the Go Free book and with my own commentary. And I'd like to read you why I chose. Oops, I clicked the wrong button. Excuse me. Why I chose the title for this stream: Psychological Warfare, the Memetic Riposte. The Memetic Riposte. Now, a riposte, for those of you that don't know, is a fencing strike. In fencing duels, this clever, precise strike is delivered immediately after a block and parry. The anti-white oligarchs and their evil agenda, which seeks to destroy the sovereignty of Western countries and remove white people, they thrust their mind daggers at us every day via televised propaganda, commercials, advertisements, printed media, and all the other entertainment that we consume. They stab at us relentlessly, but as you might have noticed, it's brutal. It's not with finesse. It's not veiled. It doesn't come at you subtly anymore. It's direct. It's brutal every day. You know the stabs. You see them every day. They have not learned how telegraphed and obvious their attack is. And if you are a clever fencer, someone who takes this approach at you, you're going to easily defeat them. Once one knows how to detect the attacks, you can deflect the attacks. You can parry them, then you can riposte. And the riposte is what follows the deflection for your own safety. It ensures your victory. And this is where I bring up the go free method. Using the go free method, bolstering your friends, your family with healthy, positive information about this propagandistic machine, showing them how anti-white, anti-Western, anti-truth that these attacks are. You let your loved ones know that we live in a constant battlefield of psychological warfare. These are all important ways that we can make successful ripostes against this constantly attacking colossus. We can kill the beast through the 1,000 cuts approach. We can bleed it dry from years of successful parries and ripostes. The more of us that contribute, the faster we can bleed the beast dry. As we do so, we are contributing not just to our personal successes and strength by building healthier, stronger families and communities, but at the same time, are making the juggernaut itself exhausted, bleeding out from the very resource it needs to function, which is us and our blind obedience and capitulation of Western people.
And might I just add here that one of the other problems I think that the elite is having a serious setback with is many people are just tuning out now. The amount of effort that they have to put in for every inch of gain, it's becoming like like trench warfare. Look at Disney as a really, really good example of this. Okay, so back in the day, just a small amount of gay agenda would move the football like a foot up the field. But now they do entire films that are explicitly this, and because they have become so ham-fisted, everyone's just tuning out. So they are pouring millions and millions and millions into messaging because they cannot force you to listen. They cannot force you to buy. They cannot force you to believe. It's part of the beast. They need to seduce you into belief. This is why they're all so big on trust us, bro. We are the academics. We know what we're saying. But once that trust is lost, everyone just stops listening. Everyone just tunes out.
And that's why it's so important to be a good person of good character and not get involved with these the unsavory types of resistance. People that want to go into the street like Proud Boys and bash it up. People who fly villain symbols, whether they be fascist or Nazi or communist, like Antifa, these blood tribe idiots that have been in the news lately. This is why you don't behave that way. You act in a pristine manner. You act like a good person, clean cut, responsible. You speak with love and conviction and passion for the success and well-being of your family, your community, and keeping your cultural traditions alive. You do it because you know it's right. And when you carry yourself that way and you act in a positive, pristine manner, when the trust is lost in someone's mind to the system, they will look to those of us who act with honor, with dignity, with positive emotions, and they'll see we were right. We will entreat them with positivity and truth because they will realize negativity and lies is what they face from the establishment. And so that's what will court them over to being more sensible and rejecting this propaganda machine.
And it's also much more difficult to attack the peaceful, especially if you're trying to maintain the moral high ground, which these people reflexively are trying to do. Oh, yeah, we are the good guys. We are simply fighting a small group of right-wing extremists. If you're not behaving like a right-wing extremist, they've got really no cause. And the truth comes out that they are basically just attacking civilians that are trying to get on with their lives. This is one of the reasons why they're constantly trying to bait people into violence. I think actually this is a big part of the sort of whole humiliation cycle, why they're jabbing at people constantly. They are trying to provoke a reaction so they can then say, see, look, we told you these people are unreasonable. If you just look like a normal person, just going about your life, person of principle and truth and non-violence, it makes it much, much harder. Always remember, this is a play that is being played in front of an audience, right? The vast group of observers are the real audience, not the elites, not you. It is when they when they make a move, they need to be able to say to the vast number of normies, and there's less of them every day. It's really,
Mhm.
really interesting. The number of normies is shrinking, shrinking, shrinking. Those are the real target of
Mhm.
these operations, and so it's always very, very important to show to the normies, to appear to the normies as the truthful and reasonable people that we are.
Well, before we move to my final slides, I want to preface it with this. We talked about truth being powerful. We talked about memetics, things that are easy to remember and that will easily stick in the mind of people who hear it and read it. This is why memes are so powerful, because they invoke a subconscious and a conscious response. And those two things working together will give you the subconscious strength to detect attacks against your mind in psychological warfare. And if your subconscious and conscious mind are lined up together, then you can actually riposte. Then you can attack. And and we're going to talk about the go free method. My friend Jason is in the chat tonight, the No White Guilt guy. He is the author of the book, The Go Free Method. And I'm going to share that in the chat for everybody right now. The Go Free Method is available on Amazon. And
Thanks
I
for coming
highly,
along, Jason. I appreciate it, buddy. It's always good to see you in the chat.
yeah, I'm sharing it for right now in the chat. If you do not own this book, go and get it right now. This book is an absolute mandatory survival guide for existing and thriving in the current era of anti-Western psychological warfare. Now, I am presenting to you tonight 3 meme curatives, or MCs. Those stand for mimetic curative, because anti-whiteism is a disease. These mimetic pathogens are the sickness that float around and keep us all infected. And to protect yourself, your loved ones, your children from being infected, you have to teach them to block out and immediately parry and riposte these harmful ideas that come at them every day, that come at you yourself every day. Now, I have 3 segments of each of the 3 meme curatives that I'm highlighting tonight. The first one is the meme curative. This is what you'll say.
Shall we in small?
Not yet. Not
okay.
yet. Not yet. The top is going to be the meme curative as it appears in the Go Free book. This is what you'll say. This is what you'll type. And this is a conscious thing that you'll say. Now, the subconscious thing is going to be the second part. And then the unified truth at the bottom is going to be the real power. When the subconscious mind is trained by conscious use, those two things together create a powerful truth that will ensure our fortitude against this psychological warfare. So let's go ahead and end small and bring up the first slide.
My personal activated.
My personal favorite meme curative is atonement cannot be given for a grievance never committed. Now, these 9 words are extraordinarily powerful because white guilt and the weaponization of collective shame and guilt of everyone in the West is the primary lever with which our minds and hearts have been wrenched into not even feeling like we're a people anymore, and to having no real sense of pride or unity in our cultural ethnic heritage of the many different countries and many different ethnicities of white people of Western kind. Now, when you say this with your conscious mind, you say it with me at home. Atonement cannot be given for a grievance never committed. You know that's true. Because if let's say, Chris, you have a dog or a cat or both.
Which one?
You have a cat. Now, I've never kicked your cat, have I?
No.
So
that would be difficult unless you are developing a new cyber remote kicking thing, which would be pretty cool. We could probably sell that for a few million.
So if you know that I've never kicked your cat, and someone who maybe has my name, or maybe someone who has black hair like me, kicks
or someone
your cat,
from Appalachia, for example,
or somebody like that. If an American, let's say, kicks your cat,
goddamn Americans kicking my cat.
You know that I didn't commit that grievance, so I can't atone for that, right? Like we all know that that's just a truism. That's a true thing being said. You can't apologize for a thing you never did. We know that. That's a conscious thought, right? Now, subconsciously, what does that mean? It means that forgiveness cannot be requested for a sin not committed. That's the transverse of that. That means someone cannot come to you and ask you for reparations or for submission for something that you are not responsible for something that you are not connected to, for something that you never did. That's what the subconscious mind takes from that conscious statement. Now, when you embrace both of those and actively think on atonement cannot be given for a grievance never committed, you are subconsciously reinforcing forgiveness cannot be requested by those for sins they know I didn't commit. That's the subconscious strength that you get that lets you foil and block. Then the culmination of all of this, the power of it in application, is the third part. Punishment for a crime never committed is evil and unjust. And this is where healthy, righteous indignation comes from in your loved ones, in your community, in your church, from your coworkers, people like that. And this is hopefully what psychological warfare, properly countered, foiled, and riposted, can do to all of those thousands of people that work in media, academia, science, research, politics. That is the goal, is to make them all realize it is unjust for you to punish us for the crimes you know that we're not guilty of. And that's where the power comes from, is the repetition and the usage of the meme curative, the subconscious reinforcement of it, and then that all coming together with you and others sharing that power and application. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide now. And I promise you there's only 3 of these. It won't be that long. The next one. Diversity means division. Diversity means fracturing. So this is said in response when people talk about diversity being a strength, or a melting pot being a good thing, or multiculturalism being valuable or progressive or healthy or a source of positive things. You say diversity means division. Diversity means fracturing, breaking up a whole, breaking up something that is already a cohesive functioning thing. That's what diversifying means. When you talk about it in business, diversifying your portfolio. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Spread it around. Do some Bitcoin. Do some house flipping. Invest in some apartment buildings. Spread your portfolio around in different trading. I'm not a stocks person, but the different trade exchanges around the world. Diversify your portfolio. Like that kind of thing. That's what diversity means, is fracturing things, spreading it out, making it thinner, not having it all together. Consciously, when you think about it, you know that's true. Like everyone in the world that has any comprehension of what this term is, they know what it means. They know that diversifying means splitting up a whole, spreading things out so it's not the same anymore. So subconsciously, that tells us 2 things. That tells us that diversity means the opposite of strength, the opposite of unity. That's what subconsciously you're reinforcing when you consciously say the first thing, the meme curative. Also, when it applies to peoplehood, to a culture, to ethnic tradition, it means that diversity is dysgenic. It is dyssynergistic. It means that it breaks down. It takes away from your cultural heritage, your identity, your community. It takes that away because when you diversify it, you're cutting out portions of what already was and putting something in that doesn't belong there. You know that that's dysgenic. It's dyssynergistic for not just your community, but not just your community, but for people all throughout your country, all throughout your ethnic group, all throughout your race. Now, where this comes together is when you speak no to diversity and say that's a lie. The truth is diversity means division. Diversity means fracturing. What you're reinforcing is diversity means hurting and removing white people. Therefore, the opposite of diversity is positive for the West, is positive for white people. It teaches us together that unity is strength, not diversity. So this is where the healthy foil and riposting will get us to, is unity, strength, being a people again, feeling like a whole community, a whole ethnicity again. That's what this will lead us to. Third and final slide I'll go over for the MCs.
Okay.
Now, this one is also one of my favorites. That's why I picked it. It's not the similarities that make us the same. It's the differences that make us different. Now, what's that saying here? When we are told lies, meme pathogens, mimetic lies that are meant to hurt us, to deracinate us, to punish us in psychological warfare, we're told we all bleed red. We're told, oh, we're all human, or the world over, we're all the same. We all just want to do the same things. We all just want to be left alone and do blah, blah, blah. Or even worse, we're told through a religious lens, oh, we're all God's children. We're all the same in God's eyes. Well, no, we're not. That's not biblically accurate. And no sane theologian, or I'm sorry, no honest theologian would tell you that.
Yeah, that is completely ridiculous. There's no Christian theological
Might I point you at the
supposition
Tower
that
of Babel?
yeah, but not only that, the idea that the unrepentant sinner is the same in the eyes of God as the
As a
repentant
devout,
is
pious man,
as
right?
a devout pious man. It's
Right,
completely ridiculous. Like,
right.
yeah, yeah,
So when we repeat this mimetic curative to that lie, it's not the similarities that make us all the same. It's the differences that make us all different. No one in their right mind would look at a bunch of tall, strong Icelandic guys and say, yeah, there's no difference between them and a bunch of 4'8" pygmies that live on an island in the tropics. Like no sane person can say these people are exactly the same and have the same capabilities and the same desires. Like that's just ludicrous on the face of it. You know that. That's what makes this powerful. It's true. It's true in every way that you can have it. It is true. It's the little differences that make us different. You can even use science as an example. Instead of using Christian theology and the Bible, use science. You can say, look at the like 7 or 10 or 15 different types of tigers. Even within variances of Siberian tigers or Bengal tigers, they have different subspecies because scientists that study things say, oh, hey, it's these little differences that make these different. We should give it a label. These things, even though they can mate together, they live in completely different biomes. They have a little bit of different traits that make them act and look in notably different ways. They're clearly a different thing. You're dealing with a different animal. And so you can even use basic science, the basic, is it taxonomy? Is that what you call
yeah,
that?
taxonomy. But you got to understand that this whole sort of formulation is at the heart of the modern liberal cancer. The idea that literally everyone is equal is just taken. It's taken from a sort of abstract idea to just the most ridiculous extreme. Everybody understands if you put it this way, that if you took 1,000 Japanese people and stuck them on the island, and 1,000 people from Burkina Faso and you stuck them on another island, and you came back, in 200 years, you would have very, very different societies evolve. These two things are not the same. The problem, of course, people are often willing to go that far, but always lurking in the back of their mind is the danger that you might say that one culture is superior to another. I mean, that's a very sort of
Well, let's put a pin in that for now and let me finish this. Let's put a pin in that and let me finish this because we're almost done. When you reinforce this consciously, subconsciously, what are you saying? Well, obviously, all the people and creatures of Earth, they exist. So it is neither negative nor positive that creatures exist and creatures are different. Differences are neutral and natural. Like, I don't have anything against pygmies. I don't have anything against big Icelandic strongmen. I don't have anything against Mongols in Mongolia. I don't have anything against the people in sub-Saharan Africa. But we are different. And those differences are neutral. We just are all God's creatures, or we're all a product of evolution, if you believe in that. So these differences are neutral, therefore they can't be bad. And see, that's the subconscious reinforcement. So when these daggers plunge at you every day, when people consciously say these things to you, your subconscious mind is already ready with the shield to throw up. It's already ready with the rapier to foil, to riposte. And what does that mean together? Together, it means it is not morally wrong to be white. So it's okay to be white. It's okay to be a Western person, to be Western kind, to be us, to be who we are. It's okay. It's okay. So when you know that and you have power and strength in that together, the deracination and the harm being done to us stops. And that's the goal, is to make the anti-whiteism stop. And I think that by using these tactics, by implementing Go Free, by building strong, fortified communities that preach and teach this kind of rhetoric, as well as living pristine, moral lives that show others a good way to live together, I think that is a path to victory against these evil anti-white oligarchs that are deracinating us and trying to destroy everything. So that's my half of the presentation tonight, and I think I'll wrap it up there. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I like that very, very much. It's disturbing to see how deeply into the psychological stack a lot of this stuff has gotten. I mean, they've been working on it, like, sort of started under the Boomer Truth regime. It's been working its way in for God, what, 80 years at this point.
Well,
Damn. No,
three
wait.
three entire generations, I
Yeah.
would say, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Machiavelli did say that it takes 3 generations to make slaves out of a free people. So, now is probably the time to start pushing back, bros. Just saying.
So, is there any closing thoughts you have before we move to paid chat engagement?
No, not really. I hope you all enjoyed that. I really enjoyed listening to that. Yes, that was
Me too.
fascinating.
And I was not able to have Eddie Wolf, or Edie Wolf. I have not been able to incorporate you into the opening yet for your current $7 per month subscription on Subscribestar, but I will by this coming Monday for Discordant Dragons. Thank you for signing up to be monthly. I appreciate that. And over on Entropy, I'm showing nothing, so we got a goose egg on Entropy, but we will start with Texas Man for $5 over on Rumble Chat. He gave us a rant for $5. Thank you, Texas Man.
Big ups, Texas Man.
He says, y'all keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Texas Man. We totally will keep up the good work. Thank you very much. And then, last but not least, we have Cash App, because we have nothing over on PayPal. So we'll wrap up with the Cash App donations tonight. Let's see here. We have from White Student Transmission for $5 US. Glad I see you in the chat moderating as always. Thank you so much, brother. He says,
Thanks,
great stream, fam. And he holds up a little white fist and sends a smiley face. So
nice.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, brother. And last but not least, we have Jason Kuna himself, the No White Guilt guy, author of the Go Free book that I mentioned, where I get these excellent things from. He has for $10 US. Thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate that. He says, folk tithe on pristine work. Keep it Promethean. Well, thank you, brother. Keep up the great work. Most of you in the chat already know who Jason Kuna is. He has a weekly stream that you can find at No White Guilt. NoWhiteGuilt.org is the organization. You can find him on Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube, etc. Under the name No White Guilt. He has his regular streams on Sunday evenings from, I believe, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. I think is his East Coast time slot. Definitely check him out there. And I believe we have come to the end of the 3rd official installment of the Empire of Lies. So with that being said, any closing statements that you have? Let's actually clear the images and go to embiggen view.
Yes, in beginning, there we go. Yeah,
there we go. So, do you have any spoilers for next week you want to drop on the people?
Well, I'm currently thinking of doing something on the origin of hate speech, which turns out it basically came out of the USSR after World War II, when the UN was trying to sort of get all the human rights treaties together. It was primarily the Soviets and their client states that were all about, we have to have hate speech in there because fascism and stuff. And then, the other countries were like, well, can you define fascism? And the USSR, of course, couldn't, because functionally speaking, it meant anyone who wasn't a communist. And it's quite interesting to see how it's evolved. The original sort of thing in 1945, it didn't go anywhere. It took until like 1967 to get more in and more in and more. And it's been this gradual process to sort of change the UN rules to basically undermine the very robust democratic speech, traditionally democratic speech protections that the West had. And I just want to, say as well to like our viewers, don't, be not afraid and downtrodden, don't listen to all the horrible things the elites are saying. They don't know you. They don't care about you. they really don't care about you. And
most importantly, don't listen to them because they're lies.
Well, yes, that's right. Many of these messages are specifically crafted by, sort of psychologists who've put a lot of work specifically to try and undermine your self-esteem and, just generally make you give up. So don't give up. And, look, you don't need a huge platform to make a difference. And, make a Twitter account, get it up there, post memes to the WHO, post memes to the UN, post memes to UNESCO.
And on my side of things, not everybody wants to participate in active measures, so to speak. And you don't have to. You can implement these ideas, the Go Free method, the healthy ideas that you learn from this channel, from other people who are engaging in this survival for Western kind. You can do that by making just positive, healthy content, by having a positive, healthy business, creating a positive, healthy life that that teaches everyone around you a better way to live, and it is wise to reject the lies and pursue the path of truth and well-being for your people. So
Yeah,
let's go ahead and end it there.
be a good example for those around you.
Yeah.
I know it's tough, but try. You know,
Mhm.
there's no shame in trying and failing. There's only really shame in giving up. You know.
Yeah.
I hope you have a great night, everyone. Thanks for coming
Yeah,
along.
and we will definitely be back next week, and I'll see you guys this coming Monday night for Discordant Dragons, and I'll be doing an interview about why you should love and embrace cultural history and cultural ethnic pride with my friend Hitman on his
Oh,
channel
wait.
this Sunday.
Before we go on, I
Mhm.
need to shield my channel. Someone in the
Oh,
audience
certainly.
is asking whether I have a channel. Yes, I do, and I
Yeah.
do a twice weekly news show on Rumble called Happening TV. And come along. It's one of the comfiest chats on Rumble. I have been reliably involved. I don't say that. Other people tell me it's very, very comfy. I, of course, you know, no, like come along. If you like news, it's comedy and news. We cover like all kinds of like fun stuff.
Absolutely, and you'll
Hope to
see
see
me
you
in the
there.
chat most of the time there. So
Yes,
I'll
yes,
be there
you
too.
will see Yiz in the well. I mean, Yiz is a big fan of the comfy chat, of course.
I
Aren't
am.
we all? Aren't we all, boys?
Well, have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Keep heart. This empire of lies will not last forever, and we have to be ready to show our people the way forward. Good night, everyone. Have a blessed
Good night,
weekend.
everyone. Goodbye.
Look into this dark, unforgiving glass eye, the mesh of the microphone. Tell it your deepest thoughts, hopes, fears, and desires. We will take these emotions, turn them, and feed them back to you, for we have goals, goals that your feelings will assist. This is how we rule. From the shadows, playing your emotions like puppet strings, we lead you to destinations that we have prepared, and you willingly oblige, thinking these decisions to be your own. When you do as we wish, we reward you, and when you go against us, we punish you. In a million subtle ways, we influence your supposedly free choice. By this method, we rule over a population convinced that they are the masters of their own destiny.